15 is the new budget. So the shortage for 14 does not have anything really to do with 15. Because once that is made up, however which way it is dealt with, that will be done and over with, and moving forward, we have the budget money to be somewhere.
Right.
Anyways, whether that money is used for rent or it is used for a couple of things that you would have to do at East Templeton, and the case can be made to go to the State Board of Architectural Review, where they routinely, again, Templeton is not unique. You must leave Templeton once in a while and drive around and see the rest of the state. There are many old New England towns that have old buildings that are not 100% ADA compliant, do not meet all the new things, and the State Board of Architectural Review, if you give them a plan, we need to do this, this, and this. This is the time frame we are going to attempt to meet in this order. They routinely waive things, allow you to go into these or occupy these buildings as long as you keep them informed and you actually do something on that list. They're not going to come in and throw you out. Because again, Templeton is not the only community with budget constraints, funding issues, and using old buildings that are not 100% ADA compliant. A ramp and an ADA bathroom, compliant bathroom, is easily done. They're the two main things you would have to do down there. That could be accomplished relatively cheaply, and there are some other things that would, the nice things to do, but those are the two main things. The other thing would be the heating, but we would have time to work through that. I believe we have a bid for a new heating system complete is in the neighborhood of $60,000 to $70,000, which all things considered is kind of cheap, relatively speaking. Mr. Dennis.
I hope no one has a gun here. Well,
That's your job.
Are you worth going to jail for, Bob? Okay.
well, you know, years ago I was very impressed. I was involved in the school system where we were going to take a room and divide it up. The question was, we were going to put in a partition wall, or we decided to come with these movable wall units, so to speak. They are heavily insulated, and it would seem to me, because I agree with Mr. Spring, where, I think eventually you're going to have to do the East Templeton School. But I think temporarily, if we took the beautiful senior center that we have, and we took the basement there, and got these petitions, and moved the officers from here to there for a temporary basis until the East Templeton School could be renovated, I think that would be the best way. Because you wouldn't have to go through the expense of any definite walls. Because I'm sure that you are aware of what I speak of. And they work very, very well, surprisingly. I can remember going for an interview at Simplex. Their whole office space was divided up in these cubicles with these temporary walls. They're very efficient, and I don't think tremendously expensive.
Bethany.
I see that we don't have to buy the walls because we already own, you guys already own the parcels.
So.
We'd love the company at the new senior center.
I would just love to see you on a regular basis, Bethany. I mean that.
Thank you.
You can do some work, Jeffrey.
Here, over there.
Because I'm approaching senior status here. I get senior discounts, so I come over and Yeah, I just go upstairs and I'm here to collect some goodies.
Get a coffee.
Bethany's car's gone? All right, I'm going in. I'm only kidding, Bethany, I really do.
Mr. Spring has a
Right, so the,
Go ahead.
you got somebody else?
Go ahead.
So I was just
Go
gonna say,
first,
the
then.
final thing on this is, we're gonna have to make a decision in February. We may or may not know if we can go to East Templeton, but we have to make the decision. So we've gotta be prepared to make the decision. And I'm certainly in favor that we make the decision that we're gonna go, unless he lowers the rent, which I don't think is very likely. But then I think I have some additional information when we start talking about the next item for the CPC that I think can help clarify some things as well.
Just 1 second, if you, I had inquired about, there's a rubber roof, section of the rubber roof at East Templeton School that is damaged and has a tarp on it now, there's been tarp twice. I made an inquiry about having the town's insurance, we do have insurance on town buildings, to pay for a repair to that roof. I never did get an answer, and that will be something that I will ask Mr. Markle to look into, why he's jumping in the fire. And he's well aware of, yeah, there's a lot of things to do and catch up on. But that would probably be an easy thing for him to do, because he will be the man. Yes?
To add on a couple of points. Handicap access, we already have a bid for an estimate, $11,000 for ramp and back. That's easily done. That's not much money. When we went for CPC, we also had $50,000 to put heating system in that building. The roof with a top probably lasts you until another year, or having it repaired. Plus, we came to the selectmen from the advisory and made some suggestions sometime back about consolidation of departments. As an example, is to put a number of departments on the land planning. That would consolidate, you wouldn't need as many people. That helps you with the budget, that also helps you with the amount of space that you need, etc. There's a number of things that you can end up doing. One of the things that I hear petitions, that's, unfortunately, petitions are old school as far as, even in the business community. And you have to keep up with this, Bugsy, because they're going more into the open office concept, which we talked about some time back, that could be done in East Templeton. You could put a number of departments in each one of those buildings. Same in any other building. You don't necessarily need large petitions, put walls up, which are expensive to do.
Okay.
You can use existing buildings. So I mean, there's a lot of, what I want to point out is there is a lot of options that could be looked at to move. It's just a will for us to end up doing that.
Okay, on that note, I'm going to, any further thing on that? We just know what we need to do and look at, and we'll work hard at it. All right?
Now, we can talk about CPC.
All right, CPC, I'm just thinking of, he'll be coming in here running out of tape.
All right. I'll try and be quick then. CPC, I mean, we need to do a little bit of education because it didn't go very well at the last town meeting. But CPC is a pool of money that we already have. The taxpayers, we pay it every year through our property taxes, and it goes into this fund. So it would not cost the taxpayers any additional to use the CPC funds. Now, last year, Will filled out an application for CPC to get the necessary work done at East Templeton. So I took Will's application, made a few little tweaks to it, and would like to submit that to CPC on behalf of the select board this year. So I would need, the board to agree that it's okay to submit that application. And I also have a meeting scheduled with Larry on Thursday to discuss what is it that absolutely has to be done at East Templeton in order for us to move there. Part of the issue is that it's changing from school to office. Much like we had with the senior center where it changed from office to assembly, there are portions of the building code that you have to do that. Now granted, the access board is very good about making exceptions if you can provide your case in a good form, which I believe we could. I've talked to a couple of architects that said they've, done presentations to the access board, and as long as you have a good case, that they're really pretty easy to work with. So, I think with what I find out Thursday, talking to Larry, I might be able to hone the values on the application just a little bit better. By doing that, we're not really going to cost the taxpayers anything. If CPC says no, or if town meeting says no, we haven't cost ourselves anything, but we're not going to get a yes if we don't even ask. So that's kind of where I'm at on the CPC. Is I'd like to submit the application on behalf of the board, if the board is in favor of that.
I will make a motion that the board submit a CPC application for reuse of East Templeton Elementary School.
Second.
Motion made and seconded.
To add to that, one of the things that I gave him the application, when we did the application initially, it was for historical restoration. When talking with Conservation and Preservation, it came down that we cut that amount down to doing the roof and a heating system. $200,000 would end up getting those things done. And to stabilize the building. Everything else that we looked at, windows, doors, insulation, etc., could be done in time using the money that we save from moving here into that building.
All right.
So I mean, those are options.
Okay. Julie?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
And yes. All right. Action on appointments. Is there an additional one or just one?
No,
Okay.
there are two. These two here, the COA and the
Yeah.
cable advisory.
All right, we have two appointments. One is for the Council on the Aging, a board appointment. This letter is to request to appoint John Davis to the Templeton Council on the Aging Board. He's been a dedicated associate board member and COA volunteer. His appointment was unanimously approved by the COA board at their last meeting, Thursday, January 2nd, 2014. This would be through June 30th, 2014.
And, right.
For now. And
Yes,
then
for now.
be
And then
renewed.
he'll be, okay.
The other one is from Steve Castle, the Templeton Cable TV Advisory Board. Is requesting and recommending that we appoint Mark Du Bois to the Cable TV Advisory Board effective February 1. He has been taping Board of Selectmen and other meetings in a professional manner, is ready to take on other responsibilities. Mark will receive a prorated stipend for the regular Jan-March period, paid out of the self-funded cable TV grant account. And again, I would submit this would be through June 30th, 2014, and then be our appointments that we do after the end of May or so, when we do all the regular appointments. So I would entertain a motion for both these appointments.
So moved?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, seeing none. Julie?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
And yes. All right. Action on the Common Improvement Committee. We have a letter from the Planning Board, signed by 5 members. Letter is a request to abolish the current Common Improvement Committee and to put this effort back in the responsibility of the Planning Board, with the Board of Selectmen voting to, attempting to, this says to collect, the remaining $37,500 owed to the town from Edgewood Development. The Planning Board is requesting to manage the funds to complete the Common Improvement Project. The Board meets bi-weekly and can better oversee this process. If the Board of Selectmen wishes to hear from the Planning Board, board members Dennis, Rich, and Charlie Carroll have agreed to explain the history of this project and elaborate on the reason for this request. We don't, as of yet, physically have the $37,500. Edgewood Development originally made it, offered, and has there is a written agreement in place that they would donate $75,000 in-kind services. It came about, that amount was split, half of it went to Gilman Waite, in-kind services and/or funds. That obligation has been met. There is this amount, $37,500. In the agreement, it stated that if they don't provide the in-kind services by 2015, there would be a cash settlement. They have since, that development did not happen. That land was transferred over to the state. It's now basically open space. They have requested that the town abolish them of their responsibility for this leftover money. The board on 2 occasions had said, no, we want to hold their feet to the fire, hold them to their written agreement, which in effect is a contract, and collect this money. The planning board agrees with that. And several members of the planning board have also been or still serve on the Common Improvement Committee. And at a selectmen's meeting where we discussed the Edgewood development and sending a letter to them, we've done that a couple of times. And Edgewood Development had offered to come to us and make their case, and then they now refuse to come because of the attitude of the board. So the planning board wants us and is in support of pursuing this money, and now that they think that if this does happen, they want to revert back to the planning board as part of the master plan and the overall plan of doing that that work and that design and stuff. So they're asking for the board to dissolve this committee and let the planning board pursue further efforts on that project. So, yes.
Do the people that are on the Common Improvement Committee know that the planning board wants to abolish them?
As I state, there's several members that are on the planning board now that are on that committee. I've gone to that committee a couple of times, and they have not been able, they don't have a quorum. They are certainly not the only committee that runs into that problem, but when you have, I don't know, we have 80-something committees or something, it's always a problem to get, people to show up and show up regularly and to meet a quorum. So,
We do.
that is the question, if we vote to dissolve this committee.
I mean, in my opinion, we have far too many committees, and an opportunity to eliminate a committee and give the responsibility back to the board, whether we get to 37.5 or not. The planning board is certainly probably better suited to take on this challenge. So I think it's a good idea to do it regardless of whether we get to 37.5.
I would like input from some of the other members who are not members of the planning board.
So I may want to table this until our meeting February the 10th.
Just so we can touch
request
base.
that the improvement committee attend.
And if they don't have a quorum, then I think that's our answer.
Yeah.
Yeah, if we can't get, like I said, I believe Charlie was on that, Dennis Ridge was on it, Bob Whelan at one time was on it,
Yeah.
so. All right, public comments, and this is on here too, not for long speeches, 15-minute speeches or anything. Basically, it's if you have a question or something that you would like to see on a future agenda, this is your time for, you often ask, who do I see, what do you do? It's the Board of Selectmen, and it's actually the chair's responsibility to decide if it goes on or not. Yes, Kate?
You're skipping some agenda items.
Yeah.
What
You're
is
looking
it?
at the wrong agenda.
Where's the amendment? Oh,
I did.
yes, you did.
Look at all the-
All right. Discuss departments downsizing and reducing their budgets. And I believe I think Selectman Farrell at one meeting suggested we put out, at least plan, we'll put forth a 5% reduction.
Yep.
As far as downsizing, there are some departments who have already done it through just circumstances. I believe the police department lost at least one officer back when we were talking about, back when the override happened. I think one left. The highway department has 2 people that are out, they're out sick, and he has full-time temporary. We could, if we had to, eliminate the temporary full-time and just, sorry, you have to make do with the personnel that you have left. Dave? Council on the Aging, the cemetery department is down. They were already down people through, certain things. Sick, people have left, and matter of fact, he came before us requesting, the hiring of a temporary, and we said no. So if there are any other departments out there that could downsize or cut their budget in any way, I think we should communicate that with them, with just all departments. And we know, like the police department, the highway, and the cemetery will already say, what the heck you want me to do? We already. But for the departments that have not done anything yet, this would be a guidance to say, if you have ideas, to do them.
So you guys had mentioned 5% before, is that still what you're looking for, or
That's
is that
a starting point to look at,
is that in addition to the 2%?
2% is for next year.
Yeah.
2%. Yeah,
This
2%
year's
was
budget, what you got right now?
was a thought. Looking at 15, because
Okay.
going by the 14, looking forward to the 15, it may be tight. So.
And I think we should consider, even though we've just recently restored hours and we've established, a consistent working number of hours, that, that we consider or be open to, perhaps we need to reduce, a few hours. That gives, some departments the opportunity, if they think they could, potentially function with, 5 less hours or something. I think we have to be open to that as well.
Right. We don't know what's going to happen at the special town meeting.
Right.
We don't know if an override's going to be successful. There's too many unknown variables at this point. The one, we know we have a target of $505,000 that we have to make up in some way, shape, or form. So I think if we get started on it now, we'll be more prepared to go to town meeting.
Right, but we're gonna ask departments to come up with ways for them to reduce. They've gotta have options as well. What
Right.
can we do?
So certainly if they could eliminate a position or voluntarily, cut their budget, now, just ways, ideas to do it.
Yeah, because the question is going to be 5% of what from
Right.
the department side. I mean, I'm not disagreeing with the number, but they're going to end up saying 5% of what? So I mean, you.
Of your
you've got the-
working 14 budget, right, you know,
Right, but
now.
salary, expenses, they're gonna end
That-
up wanna know where you want to end up cutting that money.
This is where they can cut. It's their department heads.
Okay,
And as I believe, you know, the police chief at one meeting was very boisterous that, you know, department heads know their balances and know this and that. So who better to ask and put forth, I mean, they are department heads, they're supposed to watch their budgets and manage that, then they should be the first ones to be able to know where they could cut. You know, is it salary here, or expenses here, or a combination, or a position, either or.
and how will that be monitored?
As far as
Whether they're cutting or not, or feedback whether they're cutting?
when we put that to them, their response,
Okay.
you know,
So you're expecting-
would dictate, like the police chief might say, hey, I'm already down one officer, so I'm already saving on a salary account right there.
They're just gonna need clarification
You know.
as to what, I mean,
So-
people wanna know. And that's generally what you hear from the audience already.
Well,
How is that gonna be accomplished, and get some type of feedback, that's really what I'm driving at. Okay?
Right, so what we should do is we should send a memo to all of the department heads and, you know, suggest that we want you to reduce your overall budget by 5%, ask them to come back to us with how are you going to do that, or if they just want to implement it, that's fine. But we need to send them something in writing, because we implemented the spending freeze, but we never gave the departments anything in writing to say, you know, you can buy things that you absolutely
We
have to
actually-
have, or,
we actually believe, we gave the coordinator the responsibility to use discretion as, because I'm aware of one item that came through with a request, can we buy this or not? So,
but I don't know that we ever formally communicated to any of the departments what the rules of the freeze are.
I believe the board made the vote to do it, no, the follow-up and whether, what happened, that's the thing.
Right.
So that would be something to look at and to ensure that that did happen.
What is the time frame for this follow-up, and then, you know, I'm sorry, you have to forgive me for a little bit here, but is this for this recent budget crisis, or is this for the coming?
This is, this,
for the coming
yes,
fiscal?
with this 14, this would be for 14.
Okay. So what's the time frame for them to get all these back for us to look at and review, and, you know, giving them some clear direction, and we want it for the next 2 weeks meeting, or?
I believe the next, the February 10th meeting, they should be able to look at their budgets and decide what they can or cannot do.
Okay.
And I believe some of the departments, I know the fire department has already submitted, I think it amounts to, well, it'd be a total of like 30% cut, but I know the chief has already submitted where the 14 budget where he could cut. Looking forward to, I'm assuming looking forward to a special town meeting, depending on what vote would happen.
We lost 12.5% in 12. We lost the difference in inflationary spending to the next year. We were asked to present the budget with a 2% cut subsequent to that, and now we're being guided for a 5% cut in addition to that, totaling almost 20% plus the inflationary. So it's not easy, just so that everyone's aware, it's not an easy cut to make. Whether we can or can't is beside the point. It's we can. Everyone has to. We're going to save money.
But I mean, some departments will already, you know, I mean, would come back, you know, they already have, you know, reduced as far as they can as far as manpower. You know, there may be a department or office that could reduce. Others, they're responsible, you know, like I know cemetery and the police department, you know, he's already saving money on salary because an officer left. I mean, he didn't reduce staff, but he has a staff reduction, which is a savings.
As far as the salary goes, with the fire department, there'll be a direct corollary between salary saved and income lost.
You're talking about if
Revenue
you have a loss
generated.
of a person, then you're not gonna receive the revenue that you would normally, so you're actually,
If we made the ambulance.
yeah,
runs.
you're actually
We've
losing.
actually, with the staffing improvements from
You're making
last
more.
year,
Mhm.
we're up 4,000 a month.
That makes sense.
Yes,
I think it's important to note too, while you're asking them to cut, their costs are increasing. The light bills are going up, the
Yeah.
water bills are going up, the sewer bills are going up.
It's an increased impact.
So on top of a reduction, you're trying to absorb
Can't,
the additional cost.
can't.
Saying 5% may not even be what its increase is.
hence my
It's banging
My
your head
opinion
against
for the
wall.
shortage is
And
an override,
I-
a tax
I-
increase.
I
It's-
go along with that 100%. I think we should have asked for $1 million back when we were asking how much should we ask for. We should have gone for the $1 million and told people the way it is. We got all these increases coming up. We haven't had a tax increase. And they probably would have taken it because now we're right back trying to sell it again. And I think next year, even if we get another override next year, we're still not right.
Yes, Orford.
The thing that bothers me, you know, we talk about closing the books for the previous year. We have that problem. We have the $505,000 problem. And we're struggling here with the $505,000. I don't have any answers, you know, and I think Mr. Bennett made a very, very important comment where it's not, makes no sense to point fingers. The thing that concerns me more than the $505,000 and not being able to close the book. And as I look around the room, the one person that maybe has the answer is Mr. Spring. How does this $505,000 going to affect when you go for F-15?
12% cut,
Huh?
12% cut.
Are we still?
If
Still
no
we're still
cuts,
gonna have the $505,000 problem potentially next year
That's
for
correct.
F-15, is that correct?
that's, if we do not end up addressing some of this year, in the coming year, if we have to address it in FY15 budget, in total, 505,000, there'll be at least a 12% cut in budgets across the board.
And
Or selectively, where we think that we've talked about this a number of meetings at the advisory board as to what the best approach is. We've looked at other communities as to what they do with different departments, as to what the level of service that they provide and how much they're providing. So we've looked at that. So a lot of our judgment, if we have to make those cuts, will be based upon our looking at how other communities address this, as well as what we are looking at in this community.
And add on to that fact, that knowing the problem we have in F-14, that your chances of the certified free cash in the future is almost zero.
Right.
That's correct.
That's correct.
Yes.
So when we really, you know,
If you take the free cash from this year now to end up covering the shortfall, that means we have an issue next year because we won't end up having any free cash in 15, et cetera. And that's just astrobate the thing from.
that's the point I would, you know, and
Yes.
that's why I addressed that thing.
So
Because
it's, I mean, as much as the advisory board does not like to take it, end up recommending cuts, I think that's gonna be our only alternative.
this is why I say that our problem is greater than $505,000.
Yes, it is.
And this is why the gentleman has said, you may be looking at an override for several years, you know, more than 1 year.
Permanent.
We
Not just to
really,
fix it.
I hope, I pray to God, that your new town administrator will have the ducks in a row, so to speak, and address who's gonna do what in this process. Because we're in a tough time.
Yes, sir.
I think the bigger question comes down to downsizing and service provision. We're gonna have to determine what, as a community, we want to downsize to provide adequate services.
That's correct.
It's the decision for the taxpayers, the services you want versus what you're willing to pay to have those services. And that's what it comes down to.
At the fire department, if we go to 32% plus downsized from fiscal 12, which is the number that we're discussing right now, 32.5 plus, then the service provision will definitely be downsized,
Yeah.
probably beyond a guaranteed service. And we'd have to discuss a greater impact to the community than if we were looking at it differently. One of the things I've been trying to do is to put the ducks in a row, if you will, so that we were generating more of the revenue that we're using.
Right.
And we've accomplished quite a bit in that area, including taking care of old debt and increasing revenue on a monthly basis, improving the services we provide, and like as we go to ALS and generating probably 2 to 3 times the revenue. I'm still working full tilt on that, but I'm faced with the perplexing problem of, are we going to be able to provide the staffing to create the ALS service to generate the revenue? And I think that from what I'm hearing, the answer to that is up in the air. And that's not even talking about the revenue needed to go to ALS. I've worked to create the revenue for taking us to ALS, and I think I've accomplished most of that. But I'm going to need to know whether the will is there from the town to move to that next level as a commitment going forward for staffing to create the ALS service that's dependent on staffing, so that we can flow freely into that new revenue stream.
That's why I will keep wanting to talk about regionalization and per diem as in pay-as-you-go positions. Other towns do well with part-time or pay-as-you-go per diem. When you need them, use them. Board of Health, health agents, building inspectors, and other services. And if it's good for these communities, I don't understand why Templeton can't go that way. Because again, it just comes down to the services the citizens want versus what they're willing to pay. Yes?
He got whacked more than any other department. Somebody cut your budget $10,000.
$34,000.
34,000. So I can't see where we can ask him to cut as much as everybody else, because he already paid part of his dues. You know?
Again, this would be to, as far as reductions, what the department can do. And like I said, I know the police department, the cemetery will already, they have already, they're already downsized their salaries. They are saving money because they are not spending it on the people because for whatever reason, they don't have those people spending it. If there's another department that can do it, can downsize and can comfortably, absorb that, then do that.
But he's got the ability to make money too. There's a difference.
Well,
We're not
you
gonna
say
solve
make
that
money,
tonight.
but, it always,
We're not gonna solve that tonight.
we didn't have a motion, did we? No.
All right, I will make a motion that we direct department heads to formulate a 5% cut to their FY14 budget.
Minimum.
You want a minimum? Okay, minimum of percent.
And perhaps do we just, look, if I can just have a little bit of discussion? Do we want to say those departments that have already made cuts, if they can tell us what cuts you've already
Yeah,
made for this
yeah.
year?
Right.
So So
Yeah.
rather than saying you have to cut 5
No.
more, if you've already cut 10 or 15, tell us that and show us how you've made those cuts
For fiscal year 14.
for fiscal year 14. Yeah.
And we want them back by what date?
For the,
For the 10th?
for the 10.
Okay.
I would like to add too, I would like to see, like what Chief Laporte said, I would like to know the impact of those cuts on your revenue stream and how that affects for you, it's public safety or the services that you can provide. I would like to see the impact of those cuts too.
Yeah.
Not just, so I'd like to see all the pieces.
We have a motion, did we get a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. All right. Julie?
Yes.
Doug? Yes. Diane?
Yes.
And yes. Okay, the highway snow and ice budget is depleted, and they're requesting permission to deficit spend. We are allowed to deficit spend for snow and ice. It's covered under Chapter 44, Section 31D of the Mass General Laws. Any city or town may incur liability and make expenditures in any fiscal year in excess of available appropriations for snow and ice removal, provided that such expenditures are approved by the town manager, finance or advisory committee, in the town having a town manager, by selectmen and finance or advisory committee in any other town. And you shall annually not later than September 15th report to the Division of Local Services the total amounts appropriated and expended, including funding reimbursements received from the Commonwealth for snow and ice removal in the fiscal year ending on the preceding June 30th. So fiscal 14, the town appropriated $125,000 for snow and ice. I went back and looked. Fiscal 13, it was $125,000, so we meet the criteria of the general law that it's equal or more. So, and as well, I understand the advisory board is going to vote on this and supports this
that you have
on
to
Wednesday.
actually put a dollar amount on it or up to, because if we don't, we will have to address this. If you put too low a dollar amount on it now, you'll have to come back and do this again. So I recommend that the dollar amount be sufficient enough that we think it's going to cover. In past years, it's been as high as 175. You may consider that another 50. It's up to the board. We'll end up discussing that at the advisory.
We have 2 guaranteed snow months,
Exactly.
with surprises in April. On occasion, May.
Don't say that.
I just looked at history.
We've had it easy so far.
And we have some small storms come in the coming week. So, as far as setting a dollar amount,
Did Bud say,
I mean,
you and your idea?
you risk, coming back and doing this again and again and again.
I would rather set it a little higher. If we're going to put a dollar amount, make it 75 or 100. You don't have to spend it just because
Then
you've
it will,
authorized
right.
it.
Go for
All
it.
right. Well, I would make a motion then that we allow the highway department to deficit spend the snow and ice for up to an additional 75,000.
I will second that.
Last 2 storms, David.
I'm hoping to snow every day, but that's just me. All right, motion made and seconded. Any discussion? 75,000, all right. Julie?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
And yes.
Thank you.
All right, now, does anybody have a public comment, a question, or something they would like to see on a future agenda? Yes?
Where are we with the Bring the Business to Templeton campaign?
Last time that was brought up, Mr. Robinson said he was waiting for the period when Templeton was not on the front page of the newspaper for several weeks, with bad news.
Well, if you don't get the campaign going, that's never gonna happen.
That's, can certainly broach that subject with him at the next meeting that I'm sure he will be at.
Can I just make a comment on that? I'm all for bringing business here. I'd love to help Ken with that, but if you have some specific ideas, I would welcome that. I think he said before about emailing him through the town website. I mean, that's really gonna be the best way to get more revenue here. Mr. Spring has his hand up.
On that accord, an opportunity here we have. We had 252 up for auction. We didn't get any bids. We still need to end up maybe going to a commercial realtor that they can look at that, to either end up getting somebody to look at it or sell it. One of the two, that property could end up bringing us some money in, they can end up bringing down our deficit and also get on the tax rolls.
All right, anything else? Yes, Dave?
Not sure if I should address it here or not, but the last light and water meeting that I attended, and others in the audience attended, didn't go so well when certain questions were asked, and the meeting basically lost control. I don't know how other to put it that way. A couple of comments were made, and they were taped, about who owns the light company. And it is on their financial statements that the town of Templeton owns the light department.
If you
I
are,
think that's the way it is, but they're saying something else.
as I stated, the Inspector General stated, if, you ask questions, ask for records. If you're refused or you don't get them, then pursue that
Yep.
through the Secretary of State and the Attorney General's office, because it's just an ongoing thing there. So, done with that. Selectmen's comments, future agenda item requests. Julie?
Okay, I just have I have two things. We were asked by the sewer department to let people know that there will be a rate hearing on February 3rd at 33 Reservoir Street at 4:30. That's down at the sewer office.
Nobody attended the last one they had.
No.
Okay, so they're gonna do the rate hearing will be held in March, so this will be the last time public input will be
All right.
taken. The other two, I'll wait. That's fine.
All right. Doug?
Nope, I don't really have anything other than I'm glad Mr. Markle is coming on board with us.
You and about 8,000 other people.
Yeah.
Diane?
I don't have anything.
Okay. I have a couple things, and I'll try to be brief. This is an email or letter from Jeff Ritter when he departed. His sick leave balance of 171 hours, he directed that be donated to the Templeton Sick Leave Bank.
Sweetheart.
And he reiterates that he thought that creating that sick leave bank was an excellent idea to support town employees. One other thing, I'll wait on that. The most important thing is the $505,000 shortage. There was a letter to the editor published by Mr. Bernard Heaney concerning the $505,000 shortage, and somehow that turned into $1 million shortage. And apparently he either misunderstood or I don't know. But he wrote a letter to the editor, and the information that he put out there was incorrect, and I just believe that just fans the fires of the misunderstanding. and the reasons and the true amount. After he hears my explanation, I hope he watches. I would hope that he would write another letter to the editor and correct the information, and I would hope that the Gardner News would publish that. Furthermore, I would hope that the Gardner News, with future letters to the editors, would make the same request that they make of me, that I am always asked to provide documentation to back up what I write. They will not print, I've been told they will not print my letters without it. I can also not put a paid ad. If I write, instead of a letter to the editor, I want to put a statement or comment in the paper and pay for it. They will not take my money, they will not publish it until Mrs. Bell reads it and approves it. And I wish they would put that same constraint on every other letter to the editor to prevent misinformation, false information from making it in their newspaper. A lot of questions, and perhaps rightly so, on how this shortage occurred. And this is something I requested and received from the town accountant. There was a budget forecast for the fiscal 14 budget from the finance board. And then the recap sheet that was done by the accountant in mid-November. And some things and some figures and estimates and projections were incorrect. One was projected to be less than it actually was, which I believe where Mr. Haney confused the fact and turned that into a $1 million shortage. So, the information that I received from the accountant, this is what happened. The budget forecast for the tax levy, that is the property tax receipts that the town has available to spend, was projected to be $8,906,631. On the recap sheet, that number was actually $8,779,840. In other words, it was $126,791 less. So we thought we had $8,900,000 to spend. We only had $8,700,000 and some change. State aid was projected to be $1,439,000. It actually turned out to be $1,441,137. That's $2,137 we had more than we thought we had. Local receipts were projected to be $1,680,351. They were actually $2,264,220. That is the $583,869 error on the plus side. The ambulance receipts were projected to be $160,000, both on the projection and on the recap. They were listed under revenue. Because it's an appropriation account, we don't have that money to spend. And down on the expense side of the projections, that was not listed. So again, we were projecting that we had $160,000 to spend under revenue, and we did not have that money because it was not listed as an expense, would have canceled it out. So that money would not have come into play, but it did. So that's $160,000 of the shortfall. Another item was the retirement. It was projected to be $373,059. It actually turned out to be $595,275. That is a shortage of $222,216. Abatements and offsets were listed were projected $171,371. It was actually $171,343. We had $28 more than we projected. The other big item was debt. Debt was projected to be $808,542. It actually came in at $1,391,046. A $582,504 shortage. Now, if you take the difference between local receipts, debt, and retirement, if you add up the debt shortage, the retirement shortage, and then you take the $583,869 from local receipts, which is more than was projected, you subtract that from the debt and the retirement, and the debt and the retirement added together is $804,720. The excess receipt, $583,869, you subtract that and you end up with a shortage of $220,851. There is the overstated tax levy. That is the projection that we had more money from the tax levy to spend than we actually did, is $126,791. You have the $160,000 from the ambulance, which is the annual town meeting article number 10. It was not included in the expenses. You add those up, and it's $507,642. But then you have the $2,137 state aid excess and the $28. And if you subtract that, you end up with a $505,477 shortfall. There is no $1 million shortfall. And Mr. Heaney either misunderstood, misrepresented. I wish he would have came to a selectmen's meeting and asked for clarification. That is the explanation that I received from the town accountant. That is how it happened. I don't want to finger point, but I thought it's sorry, it had to be said, it had to be done. People now know. Now that